Hello friends, we are Crypto Potato, I am Dimitar and it's time for Crypto News. Today we'll talk about the latest events that move the market, some interesting Bitcoin price predictions, GameStop's plans, something curious about Ethereum and most recent updates regarding spot crypto ETFs. Be generous as always, give this video a like or subscribe to the channel with the bell if you haven't done so already. Now let's get started. Yesterday brought several positive developments that logically lifted the entire crypto market. To begin with, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics released the latest inflation data for the world's largest economy. The annual inflation rate came in at 2.4%, lower than the expected rate of 2.5%. According to CNBC, this suggests that new tariffs aren't putting serious pressure on the US economy, at least for now. A potential upside for investors is that this could push the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates sometime this year, a long-awaited step especially in crypto, as such actions, as we've discussed many times, make borrowing cheaper and tend to increase interest in risk assets like Bitcoin. Donald Trump has long pressured the Fed to cut rates, while other central banks like the European Central Bank, for example, recently dropped the rate to 2% in the Eurozone. The Fed, however, hasn't touched rates since December. The next meeting where a decision will be made is scheduled for June 17th and 18th. Currently, the US federal funds rate sits between 4.25 and 4.5%, and according to Polymarket, the probability that remains unchanged after the meeting is above 97%. Another market-moving event came just a few hours ago when Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that the US and China had reached a trade agreement. The deal includes 55% in tariffs on the American side and 10% on the Chinese side. Despite Trump's optimistic tone, the term 55% total tariffs remains vague and investors await further clarification. The president also emphasized that relations with China are excellent and that Chinese students will continue studying in American universities. Now, let's take a quick look at the price action among some leading cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin surged above $110,000 yesterday, but later declined and at the time of this recording is trading around $108,000. Ethereum reached nearly $2,900 but also dropped, currently sitting just below $2,800. Ripple, Solana, Dogecoin, Tron, Hyperliquid and several others also recorded losses after early gains. The total market capitalization briefly exceeded $3.6 trillion, but has now pulled back to around $3.52 trillion. Despite the correction in Bitcoin's price, many analysts believe this could be temporary and expect a new all-time high soon. However, renowned trader Peter Brandt recently speculated that Bitcoin could repeat its 2022 pattern and crash up by 75%, which would mean a drop below $26,000. Many analysts on platform X, however, call this scenario highly unlikely. Pav Handel and SwiftX insist that macroeconomic environment is very different from the post-COVID money printing era that triggered the previous crash. Andy Edstrom and Simon Amory note that this time lacks major negative catalysts like the FTX fallout, and the Fed's policy is moving in the opposite direction. Others, such as Colin Talks Crypto, point out that the market sentiment hasn't shown euphoria or a peak yet, which makes a steep correction less likely. Michael Saylor completely dismisses the idea of a major drop, saying Bitcoin will either go to $1 million or crash to zero. Now on to a curious update involving GameStop. The gaming company announced it will issue $1.75 billion in convertible notes, signaling a possible new Bitcoin purchase after buying 4,710 Bitcoins between May 3rd and June 10th. The funds will be used for general corporate purposes, including investments under a new policy that includes Bitcoin as a treasury asset. Despite the announcement, GameStop shares dropped sharply, over 11% in after-hours trading, following a 5.3% drop during the regular session. The decline was also driven by weak first quarter revenue. This strategic shift puts the GameStop closer to companies like MicroStrategy, which is known as the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin. According to data from CoinGlass, open interest in Ethereum futures, the total number of active futures contracts that haven't been closed or expired, hit a new all-time high of over $41 billion. That's a major jump from around $21 billion at the beginning of May. On Binance alone, the figure exceeds $7.5 billion. The long-short ratio on the exchange is 1.2, indicating long positions are dominant. This coincides with Ethereum's price rally, which hit nearly $2,900 on June 11th, the highest level in 4 months. Meanwhile, on the same day, Ethereum spot ETFs outperformed Bitcoin ETFs in daily inflows for the first time, $240 million versus $164 million. This marked the 18th consecutive day of inflows into Ethereum funds, a trend that could further support Ethereum's price in the near future. To wrap things up, let's briefly touch on the latest news surrounding US crypto ETFs and their chances of approval in 2025. Several companies have submitted applications to the SEC in recent months. Among the more notable names are 21 Shares, WisdomTree, Grayscale, and Franklin Templeton. XRP currently leads in terms of the number of ETF applications, and Bloomberg analysts recently estimated that there is an impressive 85% chance of XRP ETF approval this year in the US. That puts it just behind leaders Solana and Litecoin, which have a 90% chance. Dogecoin is closely behind with 80%, while ADA, DOT, AVAX, and HBAR are each estimated at 75%. The SEC is actively reviewing Solana ETF applications and has requested updated filings and clarity on mechanisms like staking. A decision is expected within 3 to 4 weeks if things proceed smoothly. Although delays are common, analysts expect final approvals for Solana and Litecoin in Q4, with XRP not far behind. Such ETFs would offer new ways for people to invest in these altcoins, a fundamentally bullish development. That's all for today, friends. Have a great Thursday and see you tomorrow.